good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials so you have something to listen to while you're crafting. Oh my God, is this fantastic? Oh, I want to thank Rose Prophet for helping me out with the artwork here. It was a collaboration, but I learned a lot of things, artist-wise. Anyway, loving that. So I was working on, I just heard a car door, working on the second Halloween painting that I have from Crystal Canvas Arts Designs. So it's crystal. Oh, crystals are just so beautiful, honest to God. So I'm going up this side. There's like a little house here. I don't know if you can tell. I haven't done the pumpkin yet, but all of this underneath is what I was doing yesterday. Okay. And this morning, this is for Lisa. Lisa, first I'm trying to get the light powder back on. Turn on. Okay. Where is it? Oh, here. I walked to the donut store this morning. It was a very long walk. No, it really wasn't, but for me it was, because I thought, well, this is the last morning until we get another cold front. It's supposed to get warm again today. I'm gonna probably have to put the air conditioner on by 4 o'clock. I'm thinking, and then we won't have cooler weather again until the weekend. So definitely a cooler weather activity. Walking over to get the donuts. So, and I just have to say, you guys, go a little stir crazy in this house. Gotta get out. I gotta get out. So walking up to the donut shop helped. I got to see other human beings besides my sister. And stopped at the Starbucks, got a little frappe there because there's so much stuff that way. Like there's the Winchells, there's actually Harbor Freight there, all kinds of restaurants. So I stopped at made like one big circle. I stopped at the donut place, then stopped at the Starbucks, and then came on home. You're like, who cares, right? Anyway, that was my morning. Okay, we're going to talk about Kowalski today. Maya Kowalski. In her case, her brother Kyle, her father Jack are all suing Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital because they're alleged to have falsely imprisoned her and fraud for billing for CRPS, which they said she didn't have. Her admitting diagnosis was Munchausen's by proxy, and that's the diagnosis they kept throughout her stay, but they were billing for complex regional pain syndrome because it pays a higher rate. Now, what else was it? There was one other thing. Anyway, so she took the stand. Really, such a sweet girl. She's 17 now. So when all this was going on, she was 10 years old when she went into Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital, and she was not taken there by her mother. She was taken there by her father, Jack. I don't know why. They were staying at the Ronald McDonald House. Let me just set the stage for you. There's a hurricane coming. A hurricane is coming to Pinellas County. Now, you know what that's like when a hurricane's getting ready to hit Florida. Like, especially if it's a big one. People get nervous and worried and they start packing up and leaving, and, it's just chaos. So this is going on. She's getting they have to leave home. They live in Venice, which is a few hour drive from Pinellas County. So they drive from Venice over to Pinellas County where she's getting her ketamine injection therapy. And that night they were staying at the Ronald McDonald House. Well, she was in such excruciating pain that her father took her to All Children's Hospital. Now, a lot of the pain was caused by CRPS, but it was precipitated by constipation. Now, if y'all have never been constipated, I'm going to tell you, it can be painful. Yeah, it can be very painful. So she said she had her knees to her chest. She was just in agony. agony. She said, I wasn't writhing, but yes, I was in agony. So she goes there, and she said it was not very long. Pretty quickly, they put her in the PICU, pediatric intensive care unit, and they wanted to put an NG tube down her. Now, the reason they would put this, that's a nasogastric tube. But in addition to being a lawyer in the past, I was also a nurse. So a nasogastric tube, it goes in through your nose and then down into your stomach, and then it drains the contents of the stomach and keeps it allows the bowel to rest in case there is maybe an obstruction, or I mean, they don't know. They don't know. They just know that this girl is in um, excruciating abdominal pain, and it's not torture, although she'll beg to differ. She didn't, because of the CRPS. They have that. I forget what the official name of it is, where they don't want to be touched because they're anticipating the pain, including a nasogastric tube going down the back of your throat. And she said, "Can you just sedate me and do it? Just sedate me and then put it in." No, they just held her down, put it in. That's really bad because listen, you'd have to hold me down to put one down me because yeah, no thanks. Yeah. So there was took 2 to 3 people holding her down to get that inside of her. Then she said that there was another time where they did put you know, fast forward, there was another time where she needed a nasogastric tube, but they sedated her before they put it in. Ah, they got a clue, you think? Okay, so she was asked if her mom had ever administered IV ketamine at home, and she's like, no, never. Now, I did notice, and maybe I didn't hear right, but on cross examination, I could have sworn she said, when he asked her if mom was administering ketamine at home, she said she didn't know. Yeah. But I'm quite clear that on direct examination, she said no. She was not giving me IV ketamine nor oral ketamine. I think they had some there at home. She wasn't giving it to, Beata was not giving that to her daughter, according to her daughter. I don't know. The more I hear about this case and Beata and the fact that this child, on her own, with her help of her brother and her father and her therapist and her courage, got over this. She's not over the CRPS, but she got herself back to a position where she's functioning. She's walking, she's ice skating, she's going to physical education class. Uh, seventh seventh grade, she participated in physical education, and then there was no physical education in 8th grade. So she said she would get up every morning about 5:30 because she didn't sleep well at the time. So she would get up really early and she would run around the block 5 times. She goes, and they said, "Well, was that 5 miles?" She goes, "I don't know if it was 5 miles going around the block, but whatever it was, I would go 5 times." So he's like, "Oh, 4 miles. Yeah, 4 miles. We'll go with 4 miles. Who knows?" So Sally Smith. Now her name has not come up a lot, but this is the doctor who was forcing the issue of Munchausen by proxy. But this doctor did not work for All Children's. This doctor had privileges at All Children's, but she was a Department of Children and Families doctor. She worked for them as a child protective doctor or child abuse doc. I don't know. She she was supposed to be an expert in how to recognize child abuse in children, but so Maya was asked, did this woman ever explain what her role was in your care or distinguish herself from other doctors? And Maya said, no, no, they didn't. She just came in her lab coat, and when a doctor comes in your hospital room in a lab coat, you're thinking, okay, this is one of my doctors. That's what I would think. Now, personally, I'd go into a little bit more detail. Like, can I see your ID? Because I was a risk manager. I'd like to see your ID. Who's your employer? I used to have to do that to doctors. I would say, you need to wear a name tag. The name tag needs to say who you work for, and it can't say the hospital because you don't work for the hospital. I had to take the ER tags away from the doctors because theirs all said the hospital. I'm like, no, no, no. You don't work for the hospital. You work for an independent company. Now, if you want to put that company on your name tag, feel free. Um, anyway, that was just, I digress. So she was asking about a necklace that she was wearing on the stand. And she said that at one point during her hospitalization, she had a little bit of money, and I think her aunt took her down to the gift shop, and she bought something for Kyle and this necklace for mom, and it was a little, it said on it, "I love you to the moon and back," and she says, which is something her mom would say to her all the time. So she bought that for her mom, and she ran out of money, so they bought something for dad that she could say that she had bought. I don't know what it was, but anyway. So she said that she understood that her mother wore that necklace all the time, and in fact, when she hung herself, she had that necklace on, and so now Maya wears it all the time. So she was saying that during this hospitalization, this is the October hospitalization at John Hopkins. She said she was in 3 different rooms. All of them had surveillance cameras in the room, but she was told, "Oh, don't worry about those. They don't work. No, no, we're not filming you. Don't just forget they're there. They worked." So, and then she was said she was kept in her room most of the time. She said there was a rec room that she went to a couple of times, but most of the time she was in her room. Um, she was curious about why the other patients on the floor that she was at, because she had 3 different rooms, but in this one floor where she was at, all the patients outside the room, they had their names on the little name tags. It had their name. Hers didn't, and hers just had a piece of paper that was like color coded. So she would ask the nurse, "What does that mean? How come I don't have a name up there?" And they wouldn't tell her. That's horrible for a 10-year-old. You're like, "Why does everyone else have a name tag, but I don't?" Yeah, and these are the things 10-year-olds remember. Then she does not have any love for Kathy Beatty. Kathy Beatty is the social worker I told you about the other day. They didn't talk about during her testimony her asking to be Maya's mother, but it does come up in this testimony, and I knew that it would. She said Kathy Beatty told her she was not allowed to talk to other patients. She had met this one girl in the rec room, I think. She had met a girl in the rec room, and she met the girl's mother, and the girl and her mother had bought her a present and given it to her. I don't know what the present was, but Kathy Beatty told her, "No, no, no, you are not allowed to visit with other people." She wasn't allowed anything from home, no home baked goods. Anytime anybody brought her anything, including communion wafers and the drink that, the body and blood of Christ, not allowed to have that in the hospital because it could be spiked with ketamine from mom. Now, how she was going to get that into a communion wafer, I don't know. But anyway. And the nurses kept telling her that the pain was all in her head. It's all in your head. They would put her, the toilets, they had the bedside come on and they would put it just out of her reach, thinking, "Oh, she'll get to it. If she gets desperate enough, she'll get over to it." She would just defecate in the bed. She couldn't reach it. Or some of the nicer nurses would actually come in and help her. But she said that most of the nurses would yell at her and tell her, "Oh, you're faking it, or you're making this up, it's all in your head." Um, Kathy Beatty told her that her mom was in a mental hospital, and wouldn't you like for me to be your mom? It's creepy, really creepy. Then she mentioned there was a Dr. Elliot who told her that her mom had been putting her in a coma once a week. And she's like, no, she's not. Why would you say that to a little kid? Your mom's been putting you in a coma once a week. No. She's the constipation that she originally went in with got better, but the rest of her body deteriorated, and she was getting physical therapy. No question about that. But she says if the physical therapy is not tailored to her specifically and her pain, it won't work. It has to be a very specific regimen that will only work with her, I guess, for her to be able to recover. And it just wasn't happening the right way, is the way I'm perceiving it. I got more. There's more. Then so prior to this hospitalization, she would go to Sunday school every week. She'd go to church every week. She'd take communion every week. And her pastor, her father, she's Catholic, came to the hospital, and he was not allowed to give her the communion wafers or the body and blood of Christ. No communion for you. No communion for you. Cross-examination, the attorney pointed out, well, didn't you have Father Tom, the hospital um, pastor, whatever he is? And she said, yeah, Father Tom came once or twice and gave her communion. But then she said he started talking about himself, like personal stuff about his life. And she said after that, she didn't want him back. So later on down the line, she was given a rosary and a prayer book that she was very much appreciative of. And then Kathy Beatty took them away from her. No explanation. Kathy Beatty took her down to the chapel. You know, every hospital has one. Go down to the chapel, and there's no cameras in the chapel. So Kathy Beatty takes her into the chapel, and she was excited. Oh, I get to leave my room. I'm going down to the chapel. Yay. So Kathy Beatty takes her inside the chapel. They sit towards the back. Kathy Beatty puts her in her lap, starts hugging on her, kissing on her, and saying, don't you want me to be your mommy? That Kathy Beatty was weird, very weird. Um, and Maya commented this was a whole nother level of messed up, whole nother level of messed up. I like that. And she said the doctors would put words in her mouth. A lot of what you're seeing in the medical records that is attributable to something she may have said. She said, I never said those things. The doctors were putting words in my mouth. They would write down things in the record that I never said. No. Then they showed pictures of her with the skin lesions on her knee and forehead. Um, and then the attorney would open the nurse's notes to the skin assessment. It would be blank. They weren't assessing her skin. They weren't following these lesions that the CRPS call, you know, um, that are symptoms of the CRPS that she had. She had one on her forehead, one on her knee. They weren't assessing her for that. They were, oh, she's just scratching herself. Then Kathy Beatty took away her school computer because one of the nurses went to Kathy Beatty and said, hey, I saw her accessing her email. Now, Maya was very clear about this was a school computer. The only emails you could get would be from other students, teachers, faculty. Nobody on the outside. She couldn't email back and forth to her mother, which is what they thought she might be doing. So this nurse goes to Kathy and says, hey, I saw her in her email on the phone. You better. Kathy takes the computer away from Maya and says, I heard you were accessing porn. Now, this is a 10-year-old. She'd never even heard. I don't know what porn is. What's porn? I'd be like, what is porn? Um, she learned what porn was. So then there was what Maya calls the Megan Trainor incident. So they know, the nurses knew that she loved Megan Trainor. So one day this nurse comes in and she's playing Megan Trainor on some device. And, you know, uh, Maya's having a good day. She's bouncing around on the bed, dancing and singing to Megan Trainor. So she brings in some more nurses. Like pretty soon, there's a whole crowd there, and they're all watching her dance to Megan Trainor, and they're filming her. And she felt very used by all that. You know, she said, "I was having a good day." She wasn't really moving her lower extremities. She was just kind of bouncing around on the bed and singing to Megan Trainor. So when it was time for her to go to court, she was all excited. She wanted to wear this one particular dress. She described the dress. She said, "Dad went with me when we shopped for this dress. I wanted to wear this dress." He brought it in and gave it to whoever. She never saw the dress. And Maya was told by another social worker that the dress was hanging in Kathy Beatty's office. And she said, "It's probably still hanging there to this day. I've never seen it again. Never saw the dress." She goes, "I ended up with some red dress. I don't know where this red dress came from." So she was getting dressed to go to court. She was all excited about going to court. She thought this would be her opportunity to talk to the judge. We're talking about the family court proceeding where she was taken away from her parents. So she's going to court. She's going to get to talk to the judge. So before she went, Kathy said, we have to take pictures of your body. We're gonna require that you strip naked, and we're going to take your pictures." So she's like, "No, no, 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 no." So it took two of them to hold her down while other people took pictures of her. They stripped her. She said, as a compromise, they decided she could leave her sports bra and panties on, and they stripped her down. And you could tell she's crying during this procedure. And they're taking these photographs, and I understand that. I get it. But these are photographs that should have made their way into the medical record. They didn't. And if the photographs were taken for the purpose that they were proposed to be taken for, to make sure that nothing happened to her while she was out of the facility, then they should have taken pictures when she got back from court, and they didn't. Yeah. Now, there was some back and forth with her and the defense attorney about whether are you sure they didn't? I'm positive they only took one set of photographs. They did not take two. They wanted to, and I told them, no, I don't want it. So, no question, this was a very, very mature 10-year-old at the time of this, And then they talked about afterwards, after, how she found out her mother had passed away. She said that during that night, about 2 in the morning, she didn't know her mom had passed away. About 2 in the morning, she woke up and she had this horrible fear, dread, and she thinks back on it that that was pretty much the time that her mom died, when she hung herself, and that maybe that was her mom visiting her. Yeah. So she didn't learn about the death until later that evening, when her father and her parish priest came to inform her. And then they didn't get to stay very long, a few minutes. They let her know what happened, and then they had to leave. Oh, so sad. So, so sad that it had to come to that. But she has survived for 7 years with no ketamine. She says, "Don't get me wrong. I still have pain. I still have complex regional pain syndrome. I've had a flare up or two, but I get warm water therapy. I get physical therapy. I run. I, you know, she, all kinds of physical activity. I try to keep my muscle tone up. Um, so she doesn't ice skate anymore. She ice skated through high school, and then she's started. It involves a lot of falls, which I can imagine. You're trying something new and you fall. She was afraid that it was going to bring on um, a flare up of her CRPS, so she quit. And to this day, she is deathly afraid of doctors. She, for a while, she refused to go to any doctors. Wouldn't go to her pediatrician. Doesn't want anything to do with anybody that looks like anybody she saw at that hospital while she was staying there. Doesn't want anything to do with any doctors. She's afraid. She's that they're going to put words in her mouth, that they're going to take her away from her father. Now she's making plans to go to college. She said she has lots of options. Um, she said she's even considering maybe New York. There you go, Maya. New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. Go to college there. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. So at one point, the judge had said, we need to give the jury a break. So they took a break. During this break, the defense asked for a mistrial because several of the questions were asked in a way that insinuated that the hospital was holding her hostage. And the judge has said many times, this is not what this case is about. She was under a court order to be in this hospital from this day till this day. So from this day till this day, it's not in dispute who was holding her in that hospital. But from the time she was admitted until the time that order went into effect, those days are what the issue is. You were you were They were violating your patient's bill of rights. You weren't allowed to leave. You weren't allowed to converse with your doctors, your priest. They were holding you captive. So the judge said, if you do this again, Mr. Plaintiff Attorney, I will declare a mistrial. So, and I don't remember how he said it, what the question was that prompted this mistrial, but he's got to watch how he's asking these questions, or it will end up in a mistrial. Because the hospital is adamant, we were not holding this girl hostage. She was put in there. Well, she wasn't put in there. The hospital admitted her and held her there until that court order came through. The hospital threatened the father and said, during this meeting, the father testified that he went into this meeting and it was made very clear to him during this meeting that if he tried to take his daughter out, he'd be subject to arrest. And this was before the court order. That's the part that matters in this proceeding. All right, guys, I've run out of things to talk about. I just can't help looking at this logo. I just love it. All right, guys, that's the show for today. It's Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. I hope you have a good day. Bye, everyone.